Welcome back, everybody. This is a 1.26.0 patch note update. Lots of cool things to show in this update, and I'm very excited to show it off to all of you because there's a lot to talk about today. There was a small video made about it on YouTube. I will link it down below from the devs themselves, and they actually talked about it more in depth, I would say, or actually more at a high level. This update, this patch note document on the website, which will also be linked down below, has a lot more in-depth stuff on it. So we're going to go through every single thing line by line and then kind of show you in game. And so, and I'll give you my thoughts along the way. So this might be a longer video. Buckle up for it because it's probably not going to be edited at all. We're just going to go raw through it. So the first change that they are addressing is the Super 90. Obviously, in 1.25.0, the Super 90 was hella OP. It became the Sniper 90, as most of you people know about it. So now they're finally going to change it. Ultimately, what the big thing that's going to be changed here is the effective range has been reduced. So now it can't shoot from super far away, right? Sniper 90 now goes back to Super 90, and the armor penetration has now been reduced from medium to low, so it's now harder. And they kept the rate of fire, which I think this is good. I honestly think this is one of the better changes that they've made, right? I think, you know, it was just getting so OP. It was just absolutely terrible to play against in game. And so I think this is something better that they've done here. And I'm glad that they've changed to Super 90 because that was something that was not fun to play against in a lot of matches. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to move on there and move on to the gameplay visibility update. This has a ton. This is the big bulk of the update that actually has a ton of changes. So obviously they want to change it so that basically no matter what device you're playing on, you have the same gameplay experience. That was the big goal of this update for the devs. They basically said you're playing on phone, you're playing on tablet, you're playing on a stretched phone, not a 16:9 phone. We want you to have the same experience because they want to be competitive and equal as well, right? So that's basically what they did. They obviously saw this and they said, we're going to address some gameplay experience moving forward. And so one of the big things that they did here was that they changed a lot of the things around gameplay experience. So you can see here on the screen, they've addressed many legacy issues, which I think is interesting, outside of the scope of the key release, right? And so they've changed things like peeker's advantage, crouch abuse, things like that, odd looking fingers with just the overall model, and then the shakiness as well. So let's first go on to the weapon view model position change. This is one of the most anticipated things of a long time because before it was really small. The actual weapon models and hand models were much smaller, and it was actually in one update revealed that was a bug. It wasn't supposed to be like that, and so they ultimately fixed it. A lot of outrage though. The community was very upset by that ultimately, and so they've done something I think is really good to actually revert it kind of back to what it was before. You can see here they said that all the weapon positions were adjusted very carefully, showcasing the weapon that helps your eyes line up with the crosshair, and depending on your aspect ratio, there's now ultimate correction to keep the game as close as possible on all devices. I think that's great. You can see here the huge update that's been taking place here. You can't get it any bigger, but regardless, you can see there big changes from 1.25. In this clip right here, you can at least see, you can only see a little part of the hand. In the new version, you can see the entirety of the sleeve and the hand. So that's one of the biggest changes here, at least for 4.3, which is me. That's what a phone player is like. And same thing with here, 1.25. Imagine you had a glove, a really nice pair of gloves in game, and you couldn't even see half of it, right? Now you can actually see the entirety of all the gloves, which I think is really cool. And that's a good point Twist brought up in his live stream that I was watching at least earlier today. So I think this is awesome. You can see the P250 is a bit smaller. The AK is a bit smaller. What this does remind me of though, is the fact that whenever you're watching a CSGO cinematic, this is how stretched it looks. It looks like the gun is super far out. Before, I actually like kind of how the AK was, but now it's just super far out. So honestly, it's whatever. I like that we're getting to see more of the gloves and the actual cosmetics of the game. And so props to them for actually changing this. And you can see how it's changed on a 20:9 phone as well, potentially if you're playing on like a gaming phone specifically. So I think that's cool that they've changed the weapon view model because a lot of people hated it before, and now it's a lot better. I would say a lot more people like it because now it is a little more visible. So whenever you have gloves now, they're actually useful, right? You can actually see it all. Moving on a little bit to the next thing, the field of view slider. This one is really awesome. I'm really happy that they did this one. They heavily tested this, and they now have a field of view slider. Essentially, for health related issues, I'm reading this right now. The slider allows for some slight peripheral vision. So basically you can actually counter tunnel vision. So you can see more left and right, I would say, for that. And I think it's kind of nice. And so basically for competitive uses, you can actually see more to your left and right. You can see here the maximum FOV. It allows you to see a little more. You can see on the left side, you don't get to see any of these bricks right here, but on the right side, if you do set it to max, you can see that. I actually did set mine to max, and this is something you do have to actually take into consideration, is that if you change the FOV, you actually have to take into consideration the sensitivity, because that changes by sensitivity. If your FOV is really wide and your sensitivity is still really high, you're going to be moving around a lot quicker. So that's something you have to take into consideration, I believe, unless I am mistaken. But it's cool that they're allowing you to change the FOV. Before, it was pretty small. You can see here, the old one, minimum is the default. Now the maximum is the new version. So I basically will put my FOV to maximum from here on out. As a personal preference, I want to see more of my peripheral. It's going to look a bit smaller, but once again, it's a personal preference. So you can basically make it so that you are either you can see more of it or you can see more focused. It's basically 4:3 versus 60:9, the stretch version that a lot of people in CSGO have, right? So that's one thing here, and then it shows you another version on the 20:9. You actually get a little more screen real estate here, but because you can see, obviously, you get a good amount more right here on the left side and the right side. You can see the garage is kind of only showing a bit here, but the garage is showing a lot more on the right side. So minimum versus maximum, there is a difference there, and I would say pick to your choosing. Pick to whichever one you like more. I would personally pick the maximum FOV. I think it gives me the best clarity as far as vision goes, but you can pick whatever you want and whatever your device can suit. So that's one thing to take into consideration as well. Now, moving on to weapon animations. Obviously, weapon animations, if you have new weapon, FOVs, I have to change weapon animations, and I think it's really good. I've muted these because I don't think you need to hear them, but this is the old one, so you can kind of see, what it looks like before. We're all used to this one where the knife takes up half the screen, and whenever you inspect it, it basically takes up so much of it, and it pulls out, I believe, the deagle as well to kind of show it off, and then the AUG. So yeah, this is what we knew as before, right? This is something that a lot of people are familiar with on the 1.25 update, and you can see it just takes up a large bit of the screen. And look, half the gun is off the screen, right? That's not something I really enjoyed with it, but hey, that's something there. And now look at this new one. Look at this new version. If we go back all the way to the beginning, look, you can see all the gloves, you can see all the knife. It doesn't take up your entire screen. It only takes a little bit, and you get to kind of inspect it all the way with all the gloves, right? Same with the deagle. You get to see also the butt of it, which I think is really nice. You get to see the full shine, the full skin, and yeah. And then with the AUG as well, I think you also get to see the entire gun, right? You don't have to just see one little bit of it. You can see the entire butt, the entire stock, and the entire skin. So I think that's really cool that they did that now. Finally, they're changing that. They've also changed the muzzle flash. So basically, it's not going to be super white or bright. It's going to be a lot more subtle now. So if you take a look at the old version, this is what it looked like before. So if we're going to go back to the beginning here of this one, you can see here, it looks really white and really bright. Also, May, thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate it. But yeah, you can see how it is a lot brighter. It's super white and super kind of orange tinted on the outside of it. And so that's something you want to take into consideration. Now look at the new one. The new version is just a lot more subtle. So if you take a look at it, boom, 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 it doesn't take up that much of your screen, which I think is really cool. Before it just had a ton of particles, and now it's a lot cleaner, right? It doesn't take up so much of your screen. And the puffs of smoke at the end, I don't think that's really changed that much, but that is one of the biggest differences in regards to the muzzle flash changes, right? And so moving on, the wall impact particle improvements, I didn't actually really look at this too much, but they've reduced it in size and also made it more transparent. So basically it can increase your FPS now. Now when you're actually shooting walls and things like that, your FPS might not decrease because it's less graphical intensity on your device. So if you check out the old version right here, we'll scroll back to the beginning, you can see it's very gray, and it kind of even blocks the bullet holes. If you look at the new version right here, it does not do that. In fact, really very much avoids that. So you can actually still see the bullet holes below all the smoke, right? And so basically you can see if you're shooting correctly, and it increases your FPS, or at least maintains your FPS a little more, which I think is good. For bullet tracers, this one's really small. Basically, they said it's easier to see bullet tracers while shooting. And so, I mean, they just made it more visible. And this one I didn't really realize, but all the tracer colors are now white. At the end of this spray, you can actually see that the tracers become yellow or orange at the end of it. Right there, you can see it became yellow a little bit. Very slowly at the end it did. So if you take a look right here again, it'll become yellow at the very end. There you go. And now on the new version, it does not do that. So in the new version, it stays white the entire time. So that's a new change right there. And it's also been easier to spot the bullet tracers, which I think is interesting. So it makes gameplay a little easier for everybody. And then the bullet smoke trails. This is not something I really thought I could see too much, but it says bullet trails now show bullet trajectory more accurately, and it's easier to see each individual trail. It also has been optimized for the size and gameplay visibility, so it basically means depending on your device, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, you can see the old version, and this is an example of someone shooting at someone. So if you kind of look at the shots, it's kind of coming all over the place, and they vary there. And then in the new version, you can see here, just taking a look. To me, it honestly doesn't look too changed, but they are a lot more, I would say, pertinent, right? They don't disappear as quickly at the edges, and so those are the main differences here. You can see once again, it kind of fades away at the end, right? So it kind of becomes a little bit like smoke, whereas this one is more like a laser. So when it's shooting at you, it's, you know, clear the entire way through. It does not fade very much at the end compared to the one before. So that's the main difference there. And then bullet impact holes, they've adjusted those to be a bit smaller. So once again, I think that takes away the graphical intensity there. As far as the character arm improvements, they've actually replaced all of the breach arms, so they've added entirely new ones, and they're trying to shape the texture of the coalition arms as well, so it kind of shows you the texturing behind that, which I think is really cool on the screen right there. And as far as gameplay experience improvements, now this is pretty controversial. I've already seen in chat basically how controversial is. People are like, oh, it's not as great. So obviously it's met with a little resistance, but overall I think this update has been phenomenal so far. And so looking at movement, crouch, and weapon bobbing, now you basically have been slowed down a little bit in the game. So general character speed movement has been lowered from 5.3 to 5, which basically means that everyone's a bit slower. And, you know, I think the rounds will play it a bit slower, which means rushing won't be as effective, but that's okay. Running up ramps no longer slows you down as much. I think that's cool. Realistically, you should get slowed down if you run up a ramp because it's tougher to, but either way, that's fine. Weapon bobbing has now been adjusted to better suit the new view model positions. That makes sense. And bobbing is now directly indicated by the movement speed. And then obviously weapon movement has with jumping has been reduced, so you don't actually see it move as much. And this one is really important. The crouch speed has been adjusted from 0.25 to 0.4 to prevent crouch spamming. This is really important for head glitching because people would often literally just double tap it so they can go up, see if there's anyone there, and then just jump back down, right? And so it's really easy to head glitch when you have that. Now it's not as easy. So you can take a look here. If we spot it out, you can see here, crouching before used to be pretty quickly. You can just do it, and it's, you know, the weapon bobs pretty quickly no matter where you are. And so you can see there the crouch is pretty quick overall, and the weapon bob definitely depends on your speed of movement. Now, or you can see the jumping, it also moves a lot when you're jumping, but now it is a little bit different. So if we take a look all the way from the beginning, this is the new model. This is the new model. You can see the crouching is a lot slower now, and obviously it is a lot slower when bobbing. So overall, it moves the weapon bobs a lot slower just in general. And when you move, it still bobs quicker, but then when you jump, the weapon also sways a bit less. So there you go. It doesn't move just as much. It moves just a little bit slower. So that's the main difference there on the new weapon bobbing. Now, scope and visual adjustment. I didn't even realize this because I always play on an iPad, but it is interesting to know that there actually is a difference between playing on iPad and phone when it comes to scoping in. So before, you could see the scoping was much narrower in versus a 20:9 versus a 4:3. You can see you could just see a ton more in a 4:3 versus a 20:9. Now it's the exact same. Now the 20:9 version is actually zoomed out a lot more. So basically, when you're scoping in, you can see a lot more. On a phone, you can see basically the same as you would see on an iPad, which I think is really good for fairness. I think that's awesome, and I think that most games should really do this because, you know, it shouldn't matter really what device you play on, whether it's a phone or an iPad. So I think this is overall a really good solution that they made. As far as third-person character model visibility, I think this is really good. These are probably not the best demos, but overall what they've done here, character model variations were reduced to enforce a coherent gameplay look of both factions. So basically now versus Breach and Coalition, you should look pretty similar, and the character scale has also decreased a little bit. Old scale caused many gameplay issues related to peeking and head glitch issues since the third-person view did not fully match with the first-person view. Thank God they fixed that. Thank God they fixed that. That's super nice. And Player Collider has also been adjusted, which should reduce the situations where characters clip inside walls. That's also great because I know there's places on like Intel or other peeking examples where you would just sit there and you wouldn't see them and they would kill you. Peeker's advantage. Now that's been reduced a little bit, which is very nice. You can see here, these are not, once again, not great visuals, but you can see on 1.25, that's what it looks like. On 1.26, this is what it looks like a little bit. Okay, we're gonna have to zoom out a little bit, but you can see the visual has been updated a little bit darker here, so that's easier to spot out. Same thing here, 1.25, 1.26. So the contrast has been made a little bit higher. It's easier to see them overall now. Same thing on these other maps. So it's basically easier to see players in that sense. I think that's good. It makes less variation so that it doesn't matter as much which device you play on. All right, moving on to player character colliders. This is great. This is probably one of the best things. Basically, you can't clip inside stuff. Look at this, how ridiculousness. You can't see their head. Now you can see their head. Here, literally their head could be inside the wall. Now they can't be inside the wall. How great? How great is that? They're actually fixing the game. Very nice. Very nice that you don't have like head glitch stuff all the time everywhere now. So very happy that you don't have that, and they just can't view as much, which is nice. That just looks stupid. Look at how dumb that looks. That just looks dumb. This looks like it should happen a lot more than this. So that's my good thing there. Kevlar impact indicator. They also basically made a thing where you can detect if someone's wearing Kevlar basically by this blue kind of blood splat or blue marker that shows, and that's basically how you know you're shooting someone that actually has Kevlar. So I think that's been made more clear now as well. And that actually helps competitive teams because it lets you know whether or not they bought armor or not. So that can let you know whether they have more money or less money. So I think that will actually impact the meta in game as well, competitively in the esports scene. So I think that's pretty cool. Overall, as far as utility landing and particle and trail improvements, basically they've made the flashbang, the smoke, and the frag grenade trails thinner, and each utility trail has its own color now. So now you can actually detect what is what, which I think is really good. Utility bouncing and landing accuracy has been improved, so let's check it out. In the past, this is what it looked like. So you can see here, this is basically what it would be. So when you threw it down, it would basically be red there, kind of just landing all over. Throwing the flashbang out, it would be white there. You get blinded, obviously, and then when you go through the smoke grenade, it would also be white, I believe. So, oh no, it wouldn't be white. So you can see that that's what it looks like. And yeah, that's what all of the smoke grenade, all the grenades look like in the previous update. Now looking at the new version, let's check it out. This is what it looks like now. Obviously, it's still getting used to all the various changes on the new one. But you can see here, it does not go as far. So it kind of falters a little bit more now, which I think is pretty cool. And so you can't just really throw things that far. Smoke grenades will also, basically grenade lineups won't be the same. And look at that. They all go a little bit smaller, but they are all more consistent, which I think is awesome. I think that's very good that they did that. So now it is similar all around with all the grenades, which will make a big impact overall with how you use utility in this game. Now, enforcing peeking rules. This one is once again very interesting because this game has had that issue for a long time. They even said that. We've had a long-standing side effect that prevented real peekers' advantage because of how first-person perspective of our third-person character models were configured. We've improved peeking corners overall, but there can still be situations where we have room to improve. So you can see here, basically what it means is that you basically are able to actually see things when the other person peeks, right? Before, oftentimes you would get shot before they even appear on your screen because there was a discrepancy between how you saw them and how the game processed it. Now it's a little bit less so. Thank God. So basically it tells you how to peek properly. And I mean, this is kind of an interesting diagram, but I think it's still nice that they kind of are making this less so like a peeker's advantage type thing. And so you can see right here, basically having these little angles, you can actually finally see them. Whereas before, you know, maybe that wasn't as possible. So you can see in this area, there's peeker's advantage where this person can totally see the guy just sitting right here, but this person cannot at all see the person sitting over towards, you know, CT. And vice versa, if you look over towards maybe the other side of Plaza, right? This person over towards B-Long cannot see that, you know, breach side member, but the breach side member can see them. So that's an interesting one right there. Peeker's advantage thing as well. So that's been updated as well, and you can see here on the other maps that has been happened. They are also enforcing head down crouch peeking rule more heavily. So many players may not know about when you crouch, you have to look down or you might expose your enemy. That's another thing. So basically you have to kind of look down when you cross. And I think that's kind of a good thing to actually keep in mind because oftentimes you were just kind of walking across willy-nilly, and that wasn't the case before. So see video examples. Let's check it out just to make sure, just so we can actually fully see this. I don't know why it's doing that. There we go. Oh, hold up. Hold up, there you go. You can see one person's perspective looking up and down, and I think it'll probably transition to another person's perspective there. So yeah, that's basically the example there, and then this is how you see them if you're on that side. So yeah, you can see them looking down, looking up. So it does make a big difference. If you look down, you won't be seen. If you look up, you will be seen. So gotta make sure you do that, okay? When you're crossing over. People have already been doing that, but now it's just more enforced. And so these are just the FAQs. There's more data for the Intel page, which I think is pretty nice. The website will have a new Intel page loaded, which is basically all the information and this post loaded into there. So you don't have to continually go back to this exact page. It'll just be a continuously updated page, which I think is awesome about like data about guns and things like that. If they change data about guns, I think that that can help as well. But yeah, that's overall that. And then the map updates. This is one of the longest goddamn updates ever. They've changed so much in this update. It is incredible. So this one I think is interesting. You can see the old versus the new. They made nice GIFs about it. So old versus new. Now you can't really see through B long as much, which is very interesting because people would peek out towards truck often and then they get killed. Because, you know, they were peeking from B long. The person from truck could see them and then just shoot them. So now it means that that's been increased, and then the new version actually it's been decreased a little bit. So you can see it moved down just a tad bit over towards B mid. And then this one is really interesting. The fact that they made the bomb site a lot larger. So the bomb site now on A and B site, you can plant in a lot more places. And I think this one's huge. This one's huge. The fact that you could only plant at the corner of the truck before, now you can plant all the way to the left side of the truck or the right side of the truck, depending on which way you're viewing it. So this opens a ton of opportunity essentially to plant on the bomb site, because now you can plant in so many more places. I don't think you can plant behind the cart still, but this is huge. This is huge now. Now you can plant on B site behind the actual truck, the entirety of it, and so now you don't have to scramble to get it. Same thing with A site. You can plant in this corner as well now. Look at that. You can plant in this corner. So if you wanted to play from oil, you could do that. Before, no one ever played from oil in the post plant. Now you can. So that's an interesting thing as well. For sword, they've slightly adjusted the tables and the chairs, so there's basically more space for that. I don't think they've pushed the chairs in. People before were a little bit, not as great, and now they push them in. Small desks are now penetrable, so now you can spam those. Thank God. Thank God. And they fixed several bomb stuck spots. So before you could just kind of throw it there, and now it is not that same way anymore. For Legacy, the bar is now wider and easier to maneuver, which is nice, so you don't get like stuck there often. Statue pedestals slightly changed and are now penetrable. You are basically no longer safe. You are no longer safe behind the pedestal on statue 1, statue 2, statue 3, or statue 4. And big statues are also now penetrable. So this is rough. This basically makes defending sites a lot worse, but it also is good because Legacy is a very breach-sided, very coalition-sided map. So if you can get a couple rounds on breach side, you basically won because it's super coalition side. I think this is an effort to make it less coalition-sided, which is really good. And various assets also have been optimized, so I think this is cool. And you can see here, it's been made a little bit smaller, a little bit, and a little bit more spacious on that sense. So that's very cool. And then gallery, big statues are not penetrable. That's just a TDM map. They've also added a new bomb planting button. So this is a whole separate button now. It used to replace your shooting button, and now it's just a whole separate thing. And diffuse, bomb, and buy buttons have a highlight whenever they're displayed on the screen, so you can see that little ring around it. So this is a whole new button that they just added. They've probably updated the tutorial, but you got to get used to that. Everyone, you got to get used to this new change on the actual game itself, is that there's a new buy button. And then ranked menu changes. This is huge. There's a lot more stuff now. Party leader interactions. You can pass leadership, kick member, and leave party. It's been moved into the party invitation instead of clicking each person's profile, which I think should have been done a while ago, but now it's finally done here. Good stuff for them. All party members now have access to party invitation menu, even when the party's full. So I think someone can invite someone else. So you don't have to pass the party leader to someone else, I don't think. Maybe you still do, but I'm not sure. And they added and improved ranked information. So you can actually see, oh, if someone's in Spec Ops, what's their actual rank? If someone's in Master, what's their rank? If someone's in Lead Ops, what's their actual rank? And it actually adds a warning to when they're too far apart, instead of having to click on the ranked button and doing that. So I think this is cool. It kind of shows you everything all in one. It shows you their rating as well, regardless if they're gold or if they're not. So I think this is overall really good. Really good stuff for quality of life gameplay. And then matchmaking improvements. Iron and Elite Ops will now be able to find matches quicker and closer to their respective ranks because not a lot of people are in Iron and not a lot of people are in Elite Ops. So overall, basically you would queue for a super long time and then find not even close matches. So now you can finally find people a little more close to your match, which I think is good. And also there's a new event, finally. So there is so much stuff going on, ladies and gentlemen. So much stuff going on in this update. Let me know what you think. Twitch chat's probably really bored because I don't put them on screen and they love their attention on screen and I didn't put them on there. So they're probably sad there. But overall, let me know what you think. I think a lot of people are very happy about this update. I think a lot of people received this very well. But I mean, if you had any comments about it, let me know what you think because some people might not enjoy it. Some parts of it might not be as good. I think it's interesting that they added a separate bomb, plant, and defuse button because for me those used to be the same and now that's a whole separate thing. But overall, I think it's a good update. Great quality of life changes, making the game easier to play, more enjoyable to play, and at that, I think more fair to play. So thank you so much, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Leave your comments down below. A lot of stuff to go over. It was a YouTube video. Yep, it was a YouTube video indeed. And now you guys are back. Nice. And let's show you. Obviously, right off the bat, you can see there's 4 slots for inviting people, right? It's just me. You can see my rank there, which is kind of nice, 1911 Spec Ops. But if you add more people, you can invite them. I don't have as many friends online in the update right now. But regardless, this is a new change. Obviously, you can see there. And then moving into it, I just actually want to show you guys how the games work. So let's go into a random game. Maybe, yeah, let's say we go into Soar, right? Because there were some changes on, or let's go into Legacy. There were changes on Legacy, I believe. So let us check this out and check out some of the basically map changes. So let's go into it and show you guys everything. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool. You're not able to see a lot more of the game. And let's join the coalition, right? So right off the bat, basically you can see here how much smaller it is. Everything is so much smaller now. And I'm actually going to move my touch control of the buy weapon. You can see that the buy weapon is basically the same as like the diffuse stuff, which is interesting, but or no, it's not actually. This for me is the diffuse and plant the bomb, but that's a new one right there, interestingly enough. So you can see it's so much smaller, and now when you spin weapons and things like that, they actually show up entirely on screen. You can see all of your gloves. I'm going to turn off HUD so you guys can see the full version of this. So this is what I see now. They've changed the animations just slightly a bit now. If you look at maybe like the AK or, you know, the nades now, right? When you shoot, the traces are a lot smaller. You can see everything fully. You can see the entire gun. When I inspect it, basically the full gun shows up on screen, which is nice. But look at the MR, it's, you know, fully out there. You can see the entire thing now, which I think is really cool. And this is what it looks like. And here's what the crouch is. The crouch is a lot slower now. Crouch is much slower. So this is what it is. And there's a huge difference. You can see there. Really slow when you're walking, but it's a lot quicker when you're running. And this is what the knives look like. So it looks a lot more stretched. You can see there the gloves look a little bit interesting. They don't look to scale properly right now on the coalition side. It looks a little bit rough on the edges. I think if you're on the breach side, it would look different. So let's change over to the breach side and let's check it out because it does look a little bit different. Let's buy all the nades again. Let's buy the GSR maybe. And let's try this one out. Maybe we have the SG. So you can see here, the gloves look a little bit weird. They're a little bit shaky, you know? It looks like the gun is kind of like moving around in the gloves. Yeah, the gloves do look a little bit wonky right now. But overall, I think this is still good. You can see so much of the sleeve. A ton of the sleeve. So this is the biggest change. You can see here. Oh yeah, there's a nice GSR animation. It's a super clean animation. It pulls it back now when they're taking out of the basically from to actually equip it. So yeah, you can see that now. It looks really nice. And this is the inspect animation as well. Same thing with the shots. You can see how there's not very much actual wall particle. Same thing here if you want to check it out. Not much there on my end. I actually disabled those, but either way, I think it's cool. And then if you take a look at the FOV, ladies and gentlemen, this is one thing I want you to know. Basically, we're at on the right side of the screen, we're at the edge of the painting, right? I'm going to basically post it so we're at the edge of the painting. If you reduce the FOV, which is now a thing in your graphics settings, or I don't believe it's actually in your graphics settings. I believe it's in your general settings. It should just be up here. Field of view 10.0. If you reduce that down to 0, I can barely see the painting, right? On the right side of the screen. This is what it looks like with 0 FOV. If you increase that to 10, you can actually see it changing in the background slightly. If you can like zoom in on it on the right side of the screen, you can see it changing it as I speak. Now you can see a lot more of the painting. You can see even the edge of the painting. Without it, you can't even see the edge, right? With it, you can see the edge. And obviously you can change it to anything in between. I like to keep mine as large as possible so I can see as much as possible. This is my personal preference. So chat, that's basically how it is. That's one of the biggest changes here. And then looking at the actual bar itself, look at this. It's been changed to be a lot more spacious now. You can see here, there's a lot more room to go here. And then one thing that's interesting that you'll note is that now when going over to the B site, you can spam through this. Look at that. You can spam through it now. So you are not safe anywhere basically here. You can spam back though. As a coalition member, you can spam back. So if you think they're spamming you, you can just go spam back. There's going to be some epic spray downs, I think, in this area. You can see there the bullet holes. And yeah. So you're not anywhere safe on this map anymore. This is an interesting one. Take care, May. Take care, May. Can you jump on the statue? No, I don't believe you can either. But still, it's going to be super hard to defend B. And me as a B player, it's going to be tough. Like this as well. You can't actually see. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to hold a lot of these things now. If you see someone like right here, you can literally just spam them. And they would just insta-die. So, yeah, that's a little tough one. I don't think it should be this paper thin. You know? Like, wow. Wow. But this also is one of the higher penetration guns as well. And then once again, if you throw a nade, that's green. So that one, they have different colors, distinctly different colors now, and that's red. Right before, it wasn't as distinct for different colors. Now it is. And now when you crouch, you move significantly slower than when you are jumping up or moving around. And now when you jump, you can see a lot less wobble on the gun. It doesn't go up entirely. It like stops essentially after a certain amount. So this is what it is. This is what it's like. This is the new update. Everything looks kind of smaller now, but you can obviously still make it bigger if you wanted to change that FOV. I've made everything kind of zoomed out. For me, I think that's better. I think a lot of pro players will keep their FOV as high as possible so they can basically see their peripherals as best as possible. Because if I'm peeking like this, I'm trying to clear out every single angle, and I can flick to the left and right much easier, then I'm going to do that, right? So this is basically the new patch. Hopefully, I think a lot of people will adopt this kind of high FOV style, and it will actually do the inspect animation. I don't think the weapon model will actually change. So the weapon model you can see didn't really change too much, but if you do high FOV, you can see it doesn't really change that much, right? So this is a new update. Hopefully you guys are ready for it. I think there's a lot of cool things for it. A lot of small changes that make a big impact to the game. So I'm excited for what you guys think about this. FOV makes player models smaller though. Yes, it does. It does make them smaller, but once again, you can see more of it. So it might be harder for people. It all just depends on your preference, right? All just depends. So some people might like it smaller. Some people might like it a little bit wider or skinnier. We'll see. We'll see. But that's it. That's really it for me going over this update. I just want to show you that because I think that's important for you guys to know as someone who plays the game a lot and as those of you who watch the game a lot. So hopefully you guys are pumped for this update. I'm actually very pumped to play more of it once it actually comes out more so. But yeah. You can see the chat right here. Oh, wait. There we go. You can see the chat right here. Oh, wait. There we go. You can see the chat right here. Oh, wait.